Imagine this. You're living in New York City. You're living your ideal life. You're married to the love of your life. He's on Broadway in Wicked. You're doing your entertainment career and you're very successful at it. And then one day, as the two of you are on your way to the Poconos Mountains, to your cabin, you hit a patch of black ice and the unimaginable happens. Stephen Skeels tells his story and the story of his husband, Jerad, and how they overcame just horrific obstacles. This is a beautiful story. These are two great guys, and you're really gonna like it. He also shares some life lessons that he's learned along the way. And he's had quite the life, trust me. While you're here, make a comment, hit the thumbs up, and please hit that subscribe button if you haven't done it, will you? I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Wilkinson here. Today I'm back with Stephen Skeels. I had him come back here because it was so interesting the first time, and we got into it. So now we're gonna finish the story. We're not gonna finish the story. We're gonna do the next. We're gonna do the next episode. So say hi to my people.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Wilkinson. It's nice to be back.
Thank you for coming. Okay, so last time when we left off, I think you were in New York City. You had met Jerad, and you had moved in together, and it was 6 months after your first real date, right?
Correct.
Okay, what happened after that?
Wow, we've had a really interesting and exciting, adventurous life together. Everything was going along pretty good. You know, he was doing his career. He has been on Broadway for right out of college, pretty within the first year. He did Mamma Mia on Broadway. Then he went from Mamma Mia to Wicked, little show called Wicked. I don't know if anybody's heard of it.
That little thing, yeah.
And he came in right towards the end of the first year, so he got to work with Idina Menzel. Kristen had just left, Kristen Chenoweth. But so he worked with a lot of amazing people in that show. He did that for a couple of years. Then he did a brand new show called The Pirate Queen with Stephanie J. Block, who's Tony winner for Cher, who's become a very close and dear friend to us, which I'll tell you why that happens a little bit later. And then he, after that closed, it had a short run, unfortunately. It was the same writers who did Les Mis and Miss Saigon. It just didn't make it in New York. Some things don't.
Right.
So then he went back to Wicked for another 10 years. And then things were going smoothly. I, at the time, was doing a lot of independent recording other artists, producing some of that stuff, recording a lot of my own music, making a lot of music videos, doing lots of benefits. I still was performing live a lot. We both are very passionate about giving back. And there are several benefits that we really, truly believe in. Mm-hmm. And then 5 years ago, our life took a drastic change. It was February 4th, 5 years ago. And I had picked him up after his matinee at Wicked, and he jumped in the driver's seat. And earlier in the week, there'd been like really freezing cold days and some freezing rain. And then it had warmed, one of those things where then all of a sudden it shifted and it was like 60 degrees.
Right.
So everything had thawed out, whatever. And so we were on our way, driving up to our little cabin in the Poconos Mountains to get away for our day off. And we don't know exactly what happened. It must have been a piece of black ice or something. We hit the wrong way and we had a very, very serious car accident. It was a miracle that we both survived. But what ended up happening was that the car spun around a couple times and then it flipped over twice, and then we slammed into the embankment. And we had slammed into the embankment. The car was laying on his side where he was on the ground and I was up in the air. And my body had flopped onto his, and I had broken my wrist at the time. I was in a lot of pain, and I slammed my neck back, so I had a severe neck injury. And Jerad, I just said, Boog. I call him, his nickname is Boog. I said, Boog, you okay? And there was silence for about 30 seconds, and I feared that he had passed.
Wow.
Whew. And when he came to, I think he was just knocked unconscious. When he came to, that he had said that, he said, I can't feel my legs.
Wow.
And so when he said that, I became so frightened. I was trying to pull my body up because my left wrist had been broken. I was trying to pull myself up with what strength that I had to get off of his body.
Right.
And then almost immediately I was able to finagle my way off of his body in a strange position. And then he said, oh my God, now I can't, my arms just flopped down. I can't feel my arms. And I at that moment, I think I kind of went into shock. And then there was somebody right there, though. I think that somebody had pulled off the side of the road when they saw the accident happened. And they were in the back of the car. And they're saying, is there anything we can do to get you out? But the car was so crunched into almost nothing. They were surprised that we'd even survived. And all the back window had glass had broken. And they managed to break the glass through, and I just crawled out. Somehow I was just so terrified. I just crawled out. And by the time I crawled out, an ambulance was there within like 2 minutes.
Wow.
And so I said, you have to get my husband. You have to get my husband. He said, we've got to get you right. There's another ambulance right behind this one. We've got to get you to the hospital and get you checked out. They could tell by looking at the car. It was a very, very serious accident. And so I left, went on to the hospital. It was so bad they had to like saw off the roof. There was no way to get him out. The car had crunched into nothing. So they had to saw off the roof and finagle his body out of there. And by now he couldn't feel anything from his chest down. At the time, we didn't realize what that meant. And so I went to the hospital. They did an MRI on me and that sort of thing. And they said that, I had a severe neck injury and then a broken wrist, but they thought everything else was okay. And so it took another hour or so before I was able to get any information on him. They'd gotten him here, and then they told me they were going to have to take him to another hospital. It was very serious. So I called our friend in the Poconos. It was just about a half hour away. He drove me to the hospital, and all night long I just paced the floor. I didn't realize this. I'd called Jared's mom and dad and my two closest friends and told them what happened. I don't remember that at all. Making phone calls. No, not at all.
Wow.
And his mom said, I just said, wreck, horrible wreck, Jerad, horrible wreck. And then they just knew that they had to get there. And so his mom and dad came the next morning. And so early morning, they took me in to see him. And he was in a hospital bed to tell me that he was now quadriplegic and he was going to be paralyzed from the chest down with no movement in his hands. And so as they're telling me this, I'm sort of in shock. And then I get a phone call on my phone for the hospital we just come from. But for some reason, it said the hospital, I don't remember the name of it now. And I picked up and they're like, we need to speak to Stephen Skeels. They said, speaking. They said, you need to go into the hospital immediately. They have to do another MRI. You have bleeding on your brain and you could have a severe stroke. So immediately.
Oh, wow.
So I found a nurse. I'm in here looking at Jerad in shock. And they brought me in, put me in a wheelchair and took me up 2 floors up. So I still didn't understand the full extent of what it meant for Jerad.
Right.
I think I'm sorry, I backtracked. They didn't tell me he was paralyzed at the time. They just said it was very serious.
Okay.
Then when I was upstairs waiting to find out what they were going to do with me, they said they'd have to monitor me every 3 to 6 hours to check and see if the blood would dissipate. If not, they were going to have to drill a hole in the brain, the top of my brain, to release the pressure and to release that blood.
Wow.
Which was very serious operation. But I was so concerned with Jerad, I think my mind was just, on that. And then our good friend Daniel came into my room because he had heard the news that Jerad was paralyzed. I didn't know this at the time. And so came in and he just wanted to be with me whenever they told me. So a doctor came into my room and said, I have to tell you your husband is quadriplegic. It's very serious. We're going to have to do surgery. And I let a wailing scream and my blood pressure went through the roof, which brought a nurse in there. They had to sedate me because my blood pressure was so high. I was just, I couldn't take that kind of shock. And then when I woke back up from that, I was just started to take that all in. I was in the hospital for a couple of days. Jerad had to go through a severe surgery, major surgery. And then it was going to be months and months of occupational therapy, physical therapy, and to realize what was going to happen. And up to this point, Jerad had been a beautiful, beautiful dancer on Broadway, a great singer, an actor. I mean, he'd been on 15 years on Broadway. And in a second, that was all taken away. He was going to be living in a wheelchair. And he was also very active. He built our house in the cabins. He chopped down trees. He did electricity. He did plumbing. He was the most active. He rollerblading. He was a swimmer. He was the most active person that I've ever met and the most do-it-yourself kind of person, the most independent. So all of that to be taken away from now that he relies on so many people to help him just get through his day. But he's miraculous. Once again, he's doing things that they said he would never be able to do. He manages to get himself around in the wheelchair. And with only having limited hand movements, it's incredible what he's managed to do. He can get himself in and out of the wheelchair into the bed. They said that would probably never happen. And he's just a very strong, motivated, beautiful soul that I don't know many people could have gone through what he's gone through and still try to find the joy in life. And the first 4 years were very rough. And there were days he wished he'd been taken. He said it would have been so much easier had I been taken. Easier for him, easier for me. And like I said earlier, I'm 18 and a half years older. I mean, we used to think at some point in time he'd probably be taking care of me as I get into old age. And now I become his caregiver. And so it's been challenging, but we have a deep, deep love for one another. And it's not been easy. And there were moments we didn't think we would be able to make it. But we knew that if we were separated, we love each other so much, we'd just be worried about each other, like who's taking care of him, who's taking care of me. And he still takes care of me in other ways. He was always my rock. I was a sensitive artist and very sensitive being. And now I had to find the strength within myself to be able to be a caregiver and to be more independent, and also him being able to rely on me and for the dependence that he needed for me to be there. So it's been very, very challenging. But like I said, I think we turned a corner. This is our first year in Palm Springs because the winters are very hard for him. His body doesn't regulate temperature. So he feels like an icebox if he's in cold. And from the inside of his core out, he just freezes. So being here in the desert has been, although it's been a little colder than we'd like it to be this winter.
Yeah, really.
But it's just, it turned the corner for both of us. We found a cute little place here that we'll be able to spend our winters. And I saw him turn a corner, and he's been talking about either going back into the business and maybe looking into film and TV. There's an agent that's very interested in him, a film and TV agent, said, when you're ready. So I think he just told me a couple of weeks ago, he said, I'm ready to get new pictures. And maybe this fall I'll get in touch with this agent and see what's possible. So it really brings me a lot of joy to see that him finally coming back into doing something. Because it's taken 4 years just to get acclimated to this new life and for all the things and the challenges that he has to go through on a daily basis. It's so many challenges all the time. He's an inspiration to many, for sure.
Well, I told you before, I think maybe even the other podcast, I can't remember, but when I first met you guys, I really liked you. But he has a spark.
He does.
Yeah.
He really does. He's a magical being, my friends say. He's a magical being. Yeah. He's a beautiful soul.
Yeah. Can't wait to get to know him more.
We look forward to it.
Thank you for sharing that. It brought up more tears. My son was in a very similar accident. And he rolled the car going 60, 65 miles an hour, end over end. And he had taken his seatbelt off.
Oh my goodness.
To get we don't, of course, it was like same as your situation, blank, everything. But he was probably getting his music out of the back seat because he always wore a seatbelt. But he went off the highway across and rolled end over the next road.
Oh my goodness.
Hit the embankment when the car was upside down, flew through the windshield and landed on his head 40 feet from the car. So he had the massive back injuries. But they told us at the hospital it was like a straight stretch of highway. It was really weird. But they said there was 2 young men the week before in the same spot. One died and one was a paraplegic. And my son lived, but he was in ICU for a long, long, long time.
But he's not in a wheelchair?
No, he can. Is
he doing well still?
He's got the Harrington rods in his back,
right.
All that stuff.
Right.
But interestingly, his friend who was with him, he was sitting in the waiting room. This happened in Spokane's on one side of the state and Washington, Seattle's on the other. Moses Lake is in the middle. Mm-hmm. So they airlifted my kid to Spokane, but he was waiting in Moses Lake for his brother to drive from Spokane to take him to Seattle. He got caught in a traffic jam. And when he was waiting in the waiting room, he started throwing up. And they took him in to check him out, which they shouldn't have released him with an accident like that.
Yeah.
But he had a broken artery in his brain. And they said if his brother would have been on time and picked him up, he would have died in the car. So very similar to your situation.
Wow.
The passenger. But of course he had brain surgery and they had to do the whole thing. And he's fine.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad to hear that he's doing well.
All that brought all that up for me too.
Of course. I'm sure.
So on that note, let's switch to your professional side.
Okay.
I think I want to hear more about your documentary you're doing. Tell me about that.
I started shooting it about 5 years ago. It's called Becoming Whole. And it's just the story of my life as an artist. And I think the real true message is, well, it's twofold. It's one about being able to really step into who you truly are and were always meant to be. And the other one is I think I want to show people that no matter where you come from or what your background is, if you work hard and if you're passionate and you give everything that you have to give, dreams can come true. And it's not an easy journey. And this journey for me has been, like I said, I also suffer from bipolar. I think the genetics of my father was schizophrenia. Several of my siblings have lots of mental issues that tried to commit suicide. There was a time I considered very, very much taking my own life. And so, but all those things, the journey of this becoming whole is like just to never give up, just pursue and follow your dreams with all of your heart, work hard, be passionate, and most importantly, be kind. Be kind. And so that message is about me trying to come into the fullness of who I am and who I was always meant to be.
Becoming. Hence the name of my podcast too. Similarities.
How interesting that is. Such
it is.
It's a goosebump moment.
Yeah.
I think another reason we were meant to meet. I believe that.
I was watching what is a kind of a preview trailer that you created on that, right? And your one sister, I got a kick out of her where she said, she kind of thought maybe you were a little gay.
Maybe just a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you're the baby. Aren't you supposed to be gay?
I'm the baby.
Isn't that the
Yeah,
way it
I'm
goes?
gay. I'm joyful. I'm free.
Oh. What have you enjoyed most doing in New York?
I've actually enjoyed two of the most exciting moments for me in New York is I've been able to, I still haven't made my Broadway debut as an actor, but as a composer, I've made my Broadway debut several times. There have been several big events in New York City where they chose some of my work as a composer, and I performed on Broadway, doing that on Broadway stages, but I still haven't been in like an official play or musical sort of thing. But those two moments were huge. There's one called Defying Inequality, which was all about the Gay Rights Marriage Act. Okay. So it was a huge Jane Fonda, a lot of big names. And then they chose two of my songs, one called Higher Ground and one called The Dream. That was the opening act. Higher Ground closed the first act opener, and The Dream closed the entire show. So that was a huge moment for me. And then also for Katrina, we did a huge benefit with a lot of big celebrities in film and TV. And they chose my song called Thankful for that as well. So those have been really exciting and powerful moments for me in New York. And like I said, I've done just about everything except the Broadway experience on stage in a musical or play. But that's coming. That's coming very soon, I think.
Within 2 years?
Let's see. I'm hoping. We'll see. We'll see. I've got something that's in the works that we'll see. I'll talk a little bit about, I think, with the theater here in Palm Springs, The Bent. Terry Ray, who is a playwright and also one of the founding members of it, along with Steve. I'm not sure what Steve's last name is. Steve Rosenbaum. There's a piece that I have called Flesh and Spirit that I think is actually perfect for the Bent Theater. So we're having a meeting about that. And if that goes like I think it's going to go, we'll see it moving towards New York at some point in time.
So is that the one we were talking about earlier?
That's what, yeah. And I had some producers that were interested in it. We did a couple of festivals in New York City and did really well and had some incredibly talented people that were in it, and the buzz was really going strong, and then the pandemic happened, and so everything's been put back several years, but it's a piece that belongs on the New York,
it's pretty
New York
well ready
stage.
To go then, right?
Oh, it's ready to go. It's
Wow.
completely written. We've also have a screenplay. It will eventually be a movie as well, which I would love for Jennifer Lopez to be in. She's a great role. And Timothy Chalamet, I have my dream cast for that.
You do.
But no, it's ready. The screenplay and the actual stage show. It's all the rewrite. It's been rewritten and rewritten. It's ready for production for sure.
Very cool.
So
I think you did something with on the political side, helping someone. What was that all about?
Yeah, I'm also very active in human rights. And so I recently, after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I wrote a song called It's My Body. An incredible soul R&B singer, Rashida Azar. It's actually on Spotify, iTunes, if you want to check it out. Okay. She toured with Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, Enrique Iglesias, a lot of people. She's a brilliant singer. So she recorded it, and it's all about women taking back their rights. They have their own rights to their body, and why are men telling us what to do with their bodies? And then I recorded a song right before the 2016 election called All American Song, which is also on Spotify, which is also about equality for all. You know, I'm very passionate about, I don't know, I feel like our country is going in the wrong direction. It just seems to be, we're so divided. Right. And I have respect for other people's opinions and what they believe in. But when you start taking away people's rights, there's something wrong with that. We're supposed to be a progressive country that moves forward. We're supposed to be a democracy. And I think when people start telling you what you can and can't do, I mean, we're reaching a point where now they're trying to make a big stink about drag queens reading books to children, because they don't want to face the real issues that need to be taken care of in this country. Right. So that stuff just gets me really, really going and really passionate. So I feel like, what can I do? I'm a composer. I can write something. I can get that message out there. And so I'm very active in equality for all, for sure.
Seems like you were involved in Georgia a little bit too. What was that about?
The runoff.
Right.
I produced a concert called Artists Unite. It's actually on YouTube if you want to check it out, with incredible artists from film, television, and the Broadway stage to try to help get John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock elected. And we did, unfortunately. Yeah. And so it was very passionate. It's a 1-hour concert. And it's just got a lot of really, once again, the whole message is about just equality, you know, and by getting them in there, we were able to hold on to, you know, just barely at the time. This was 4 years ago, you know, holding the Senate. We had the Senate and the House right now. We lost one of those, but we'll get it back. I have faith, but you know, you can't give up. And I also, my mom always told me, you know, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And so she said, you have to be brave and you have to be willing to put yourself out there for the things that you really truly believe in. And there was a period in my life where I didn't feel like I didn't want to rock the boat. I want to, in show business, you got to don't make anybody upset. But I'm like, I can't live with myself. I've been given a voice and I've been given this talent for a reason. If you can't do something to make the world a better place, then what else matters? It just becomes a total ego-driven kind of a thing. And that's not how I want to live my life. And I want to be able to give back and bring us all together, because I have some friends that are Republican on the other side. I just think it moves so far in a direction with, I don't even want to say his name, a former president, that it wasn't even humanistic anymore. And we were losing he said I could shoot somebody, and nobody would care. What has happened to our ethics and our morals about, and I'm no saint, believe me, I've done a lot of things in my life that I'm not particularly proud of, but at least I try to be a good human being and a kind human being and try to look at everyone having the rights that we all should have. Everyone should have the same rights as everyone else. And so when I see that not happening, it gets me really fired up. And I try to do whatever little tiny bit that I can do. At least I know my mom and dad are looking down on me and saying, that's my boy. He's trying to make a difference.
So your mom passed at this point?
Oh, yes. My mom passed 12 years ago.
Okay.
She was my best friend my entire life. My brothers and sisters always said that, we just had such a special bond. When she took her last breath, my siblings left the room and it was just me and my mom together. I sang to her. And she took her final breath. Wow. She opened her eyes for a second, looked at me, and then closed them, took her final breath. And she, as it happened, as her energy was leaving, the light in the room, it popped and broke.
No way.
Yeah, it was the most powerful. I just got goosebumps. It was a very, very powerful moment. But when she left, I lost my passion for everything for about 3 or 4 years. First time in my entire career that I didn't really do much writing. I did benefits. I recorded a couple songs. I wrote a song called You Gave Me Strength in honor of her. But then I just needed time to really figure out how I'm going to do this for myself. And my husband said, now you have to do it for you. I always did all this for my mother. My mom wanted to be a writer and an actor, and she loved seeing me perform and writing and that whole thing. But I miss her. I think about her every single day. I have a little prayer moment that I do at the end of my meditation every day for her. And I feel very, very connected to her. And we had a love of butterflies, just a quick little story. And that she had told me a couple of years before she even got sick, that she said, when I go, I want you to sing the Lord's Prayer at my funeral. And I said, Mom, I will never be able to. I'll just be a total mess. And so I kept trying, when she did pass, I kept trying to think to myself, how am I going to find the strength to do it? And I just told my husband, Jerad, I said, I can't do it. I love her, but I just can't do it. I'll be a mess. And so the day of the funeral, we got up and we're driving to the funeral home, and we went to go up to the car, and out of nowhere, this beautiful butterfly came out of the sky, started flying around my head 2 or 3 times, and landed on my shoulder, my right shoulder. Whoa. This gorgeous butterfly. And Jared's like, whoa. And he knew the bond that my mom and we always loved butterflies, and we talked about how much we love butterflies. So I tried to swoop it off. It wouldn't go. So he opened the car door. It flew off my shoulder into the passenger seat where I was sitting, down by my right foot, and sat there the entire time. It was a 20-minute drive to the funeral home. We get there. I put my hand down. It crawls on my hand. This butterfly crawls on there. And it's like facing me, flapping its wings. I look up at it, and we get out of the car, and I say, I love you, Mama. And I blew, and it spun around my head 3 times and just flew up into the sky.
Wow. And
I was able to sing the Lord's Prayer. Jerad said, I've never heard your voice be more powerful. He said, ever. Wow. I did it, and then I collapsed afterwards, but I made it through the song.
Wow.
And so it's still to this day. And then a month after she passed, I'm walking in the middle of New York City on 5th Avenue in the city, thinking about her, missing her, crying. I was having a moment where I was having a bad moment. Out of nowhere, a butterfly again came, swooped around my head 3 times.
There can't be butterflies in New York.
In New York City on 5th Avenue. So I think that was just another way of her letting me know, like, I'm here, honey. I'm always with you. You may not see me or know that I'm here, but I'm here. So, yeah, I have a big thing for butterflies.
What are you the most proud of what you've done in your life?
I think I'm the most proud of finally accepting my homosexuality. It was a very hard, very tough journey. And my show, Flesh and Spirit, which I was talking about, just with a lot of it, through not me, but through a character that's based on a lot of my belief systems and not feeling worthy and that I was going to hell.
Right.
Unfortunately, I have a sibling that's very right-wing and he had said to my mother that I was going to hell. He said, I feel sad that we'll all be looking down at Stephen in the depths of hell. And my mother told him, don't you ever say that about my son, about any of my children. Who are you to judge another person? So I think for me to really find a place of not only accepting myself, but loving myself.
Right.
I wrote a song called I Love Myself, and it's for everyone just to say, no matter who you are or what you've been through or what you're going through, that you are worthy. We're all worthy of loving ourselves and believing in ourselves. And because society and a lot of times religion tries to tear you down and tell you have to be this, you have to be that. And so I think that's probably the thing I'm most proud of. And my work just having the courage to really start doing my own writing and composing and getting out there. Because the first time it's a very scary place. When you're an actor, you go in and you're giving lines to read, or you're playing a character, and it's not your work. You're just reading another person's work. So once you become a writer and a composer, and you're having someone else say those words, it's more frightening for people to judge you as the writer. And so to have the courage to just go through that fear, and, you get stronger and stronger. And also realizing, like my mom always said, no matter what you do, there will be some people that love you and some people won't, no matter how big a star you become or don't become. And so just her favorite saying for me, and I think about it all the time, is, "To thyself always be true," the Shakespearean quote. Listen to anybody else, because everybody has an opinion. But if you have the courage and are brave enough to get your work out there and your voice out there, that's something to be very proud of. So those two things are what I'm most proud of, I think.
How about regrets? Any?
Oh, yeah, actually I do have. My biggest regret is whenever I was 19 years old and worked at Cincinnati, at Kings Island, there was a gentleman named Oscar Casarin who ran the musical theater department at Cincinnati Conservatory, which is one of the top schools in the country. He said, "I can get you a full scholarship." He just believed in my talent so much. He said, "I want you to come to Cincinnati Conservatory." And I said, "No." I said, "Thank you." I said, "Oh, I already have a job that fall." And the real reason I didn't go is because I was too afraid. I was too afraid that, being someone who had just learned all my gifts and talents without any training, I thought if I were to take training, go there, they would tear me down and I would lose who I really was. Because a lot of the people that were working the show with me went to CCM, and I would hear these stories how these directors and these choreographers would just rip them to shreds and tear them down, which there is a reason for that sometimes. It's like to try to build you back up and give you foundation. But I'm a sensitive artist. I don't think it would have worked for me. So I think it ended up being the right choice for me. But I think had I gone there and had a little bit more tools of technique, that it would have given me a confidence, maybe a confidence that I had to find for myself. So then I have a regret that I didn't at least try, go for a semester, go for a year and just see, but I was too afraid. A lot of fear, and a lot of my music is about breaking through fear. Right. Like fear of getting an agent, fear, am I good enough, fear of what people think. And it's a battle. It's a never ending battle. You know what I mean? It never ends. But I do find confidence building slowly but surely,
Right. So looking over your life, what are a few of the main lessons you've learned to give to my people? What would you say?
Oh, wow. To be brave enough to be who you are, to whether you're an artist or whatever you're doing in life, just to be able to stand and be firmly, plant your feet on the ground and say, this is who I am. This is who I'm meant to be. This is what I have to give. This is what I have to offer. And another lesson that my mom taught me at a very, very young age is your word is everything. So if you say you're going to do something, if you commit to something, you do it no matter what. And I met a lot of people in our business and just in life in general that they'll say they're going to do something, and then the last minute they find a reason not to do it. And so that is a huge lesson, to be committed, keep your word. Right. And most importantly, my mom always said, always be kind. It doesn't take anything to be kind. You know what I mean? And I think that in our industry, especially show business, there's so much ego and there's so much fear and insecurity. And a lot of people, I've worked with some nasty directors in my life. I'm really nasty. And I made a commitment to myself about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Because I've had a couple opportunities to work with some really incredible people, but they're not nice people. I'm like, I don't want that in my life. And so I want to surround myself. And I think when you put your energy and focus on that, you meet people like you. I meet people like Terry Ray. I'm meeting more artists that I want to collaborate with. I love the collaborative process. I love being a writer and a creator and working with other people. And they help me get better. You know what I mean? And I also, I'm never going to get there wherever there is, but I can keep just growing and trying to be a better artist and a better artist and a better artist. And when you meet people, you learn so much from them. So, but number one is be kind. Always be kind. So I try to be. I have some days when I'm not the kindest person in the world, but in the back of my mind, they're not very often, but in the back of my mind, I'm just saying, just be kind, because it doesn't take anything to be kind, you know?
You're a fun guy.
Thank you. You are too.
This has been fun. And I got to have Jerad in for sure. You got to talk him into.
He has a beautiful story. He's an incredible speaker. After the accident happened, the Broadway community, there's something called Easter Bonnet, which every year they do it to raise funds for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. And so after the accident, the company of Wicked, they honored him for his years of service. And at the end of it, he gave a 10-minute speech just about what it's really like to go through this. But he's a beautiful being because he's such an authentic, truthful, and honest person. And he didn't sugarcoat anything. And he got a 10-minute standing ovation after that. And that's why when we were leaving, there was a film and TV agent that said, "Oh my God, it would be my honor to represent you when you're ready." But he's just the most beautiful, authentic storyteller. I mean, so your audience would be very excited to hear him because he's something special. He's very, very special. I kind of that's not my gift to be able to have that kind of thing. So I just admire him so much to be able to touch people in that way.
So you're going to recommend me to him, huh?
I definitely will recommend him to you.
How about, I was thinking, do you have some sample song you could share with us? And I'm saying that, but I don't know, like YouTube, will search all of these things for copyright infringement. So I hope I don't run into a problem.
No, I own it. I'll sing something that I own the rights to.
Okay.
Actually, a little bit, sum up my life a little bit. It's a song called Time Quickly Passes By. Age 16, I thought I would rule the world. By 19, I had almost died. 23, began traveling the world. But my whole life felt like a lie. Ain't it funny how time quickly passes by? As the seasons change, you start to realize we all have to learn to walk our path alone. We have to find a way to make it on our own. 32, I didn't have a clue about where I'd been or where I was going to. 35, feeling more dead than alive. Found a place to hide, lock myself away. 'Cause ain't it funny how time quickly passes by? As the seasons change, we start to realize we all have to learn to walk our path alone. We have to find a way to make it on our own. Have to find a way to make it on our own. We have to find a way to make it on our own.
Yay.
Thank you. There's another verse, but I can't remember, so I kind of ended the song a little early.
Well, this has been great.
Thank you so much for having me, Wilkinson. It's a pleasure.